I want to start with a different kind of disclaimer this week. This time, we are genuinely not to blame because how to ignore this, right?
Yeah, just two huge topics.
The Indian Air Force has basically said, boss, we've looked at everything. We don't have a choice. And the Russian Sukhoi Su-57 Felon, which is a stealth 5th generation fighter, is what the Indian Air Force is basically Hello and welcome to episode 36 of the Control All Defense podcast. So good to have you back. As always, our apologies for another.
We always start on an apology.
I think the last 10 episodes have basically started with apologies.
And promises, which we mislead people on.
No, but this time we won't. But
next week is going to be a problem.
I want to start with a different kind of disclaimer this week on episode 36, which is that I swear that Vishnu and I wanted to do an episode that wasn't about air power.
Yeah, that's
and had
true.
Nothing to do with the Air Force.
Yeah.
But every time we try to leave, we are pulled back in. You know, I feel like Michael Corleone in Godfather 2.
Yeah.
He says, every time I want to get into legitimate businesses and leave the crime empire, they drag me back in. And that's what I feel like today, because here we are again, Vishnu, about to do another air power episode. And this time we are genuinely not to blame because how to ignore this, right?
Yeah, just two huge topics.
Yeah, two huge topics.
Which we're sort of putting into one episode.
Which I must also take a little bit of credit. Vishnu, this is something we've talked about 4 or 5 months ago. I was looking through our playlist. Pavitra, our producer, by the way, has put together a fabulous one-click place where you can find all our previous episodes, and we will put into the show notes where we talked about this very thing. But Vishnu, I want to talk about the Su-57.
It's back.
The Su-57, according to reports, and we've heard those as well, is that the Indian Air Force has basically said, boss, we've looked at everything. We don't have a choice. And the Russian Sukhoi Su-57 Felon, which is a stealth 5th generation fighter, is what the Indian Air Force is basically sort of poised to formalize plans to acquire.
No, but that they don't have
I'm
much
really
of a choice.
pissed off. I'm really pissed off about this.
No, but then what option does one have?
That's what Angad said on my show.
Well, it seems Angad and I have a lot in common. He's absolutely right. What choice do we have? F-35s we can't get because we run our S-400 missiles. They did wonderfully well in Op Sindoor. Plug to my book. There's a lot in there on the S-400. And what else are the options? The Europeans haven't got a 5th generation or a 6th generation plane yet. And we're going to be spending a lot of time talking about that on this episode. So where does India go? There's a South Korean aircraft very much in prototype stage. Yeah, the Borome, as it's known. It's not anywhere close to the capability levels that we seek. The Turkish are working at their own stealth platforms.
Gone.
We are not going to the Turkish, quite evidently. So therefore, where does one go? This is it.
Yeah.
The Americans are okay with us getting the F-35. We don't want that aircraft because of the constraints. There would be huge limitations, which India would have to work with. The F-35 is a great plane at the end of the day.
So this is I don't want to be polite about this because this is not a polite podcast, but this is in many ways, and out of great respect for those who run the system, the Indian Air Force now having no choice but to probably finalize a procurement of the Su-57 to meet its stealth aircraft requirement, is a cluster beep of our own making. Whether it is, delays in decision making, whether it is a lack of foresight and planning, whether it is a combination of all of the above. And I'll come to that in a bit because I need to vent a little bit about that because I'm getting a lot of heat on social media about me saying it's a terrible idea. But I've been consistent about it. You know that, Vishnu. But how did we reach this point? I want to first ask you that because the Su-57 is a project that India was originally part of, which we actually walked out of more than a decade ago for various reasons, and I'm going to allow you to get into those. And here we are back again. The Russians
so-
must be laughing at us. They must be laughing at us.
No, it's in a strange way. It's like what we did with the C-17 transport aircraft. We said no more. The Boeing people said, okay, no, fine, we'll shut down the assembly line. No, we want the last one. Please, can you make us one or two? No, sorry, we've shut down the line. No, but we want. So you end up getting one. What goes around comes around, right? There are other examples like that. The Mirage 2000, loved the plane. The Air Force has always. When we finally got around to wanting that aircraft, the friend said, sorry, it's shut down. Said, no, but we want more. Sorry, you can't. So we get into a very expensive upgrade, right? So it's the world moves at its pace. India moves at our pace when it comes to defense procurement. But Angad is right. We have no choice at this stage. But then, therefore, I have a larger question. If you are so committed to stealth, right? Because frankly, the Su-57 isn't in many senses in the same class as the Rafale. But if you're spending money on stealth, where does that leave the Rafale, which isn't inherently a stealth platform? So if somebody were to ask, if you're prioritizing stealth now, then what are you going to do with your Rafale? Is it therefore a tier 2 fighter for you in the future? Tier 2, 10 years later when you start getting the last of these planes? Where will it be then? So, and then what about the hundreds of Tejas planes which are still coming down the lane? And you and I are paying for it. The taxpayer is paying for it. So, and now on top of, and then we're going to be upgrading the Sukhoi 30 as well. You have to upgrade the Sukhoi 30. There's not enough airframe life over there. So, even if you upgrade close to 200, 170, 180, some reports suggest, you need to spend a top dollar for that. So India's future air power requirements are a mess in terms of what is available and what you're essentially procuring. It's going to be 114 plus Rafale plus because the Navy will get more, Air Force might get more. That's going to be your primary ground attack fighter at one level. You're going to have hundreds of Tejas aircraft. I'm not entirely certain what role they would play in a cutting edge kind of conflict. You would have the Sukhoi 57, which would be your stealth platform of choice because you have no other option, only 40 of them. The Chinese have got more than 200 in service of the J-20, and that's just one type. There are many others as well. And, and there are other, platforms as well that you're now going to be looking at. So it's a bit confusing, going forward, particularly if you start looking at FCAS as well. What is FCAS? It's the European Future Combat Air System.
I'm going to come to that. I'm not
because I think that's going to end up as well.
I'm going to
in the mix.
Oh, believe me, we're going to come to FCAS in just a few minutes. But I want to. I want to.
It's a mess.
I feel the temperature of my blood rising as I ask this question. But you're 100% correct, Vishnu, when you say there's a lot of confusion. But amidst this confusion, let me just list the few things that we can be certain about with this headline that the Indian Air Force has or is about to choose the Su-57 and possibly initiate a procurement. There is no plan B as far as stealth aircraft is concerned. We have to get this stopgap.
I forgot to add AMCA.
Yeah. Baby, sweetie, don't worry. I'm coming to that. The Indian Air Force does need a stealth aircraft stopgap, which means it's going to procure these.
Yeah.
As you correctly said, there are some reports that call the number 36 to 40 aircraft, which means that they can't be built here in India, despite what the Russians are saying. And I will come to a fantastic piece of commentary that Angad made on my show about this. B, that these will all be bought off the shelf from Russia, which means another expensive import of aircraft from another country. This is an aircraft, once again, like I said, Vishnu, that India had considered in some ways, not officially, but in some ways untouchable. I mean, we paid hundreds of millions of dollars towards the development of this aircraft at one point of time when it was called the Pak-Fa, which became the Su-57. We walked out of it for various partnership, industrial capability reasons. But here we are back again.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that? That
No,
this is
absolutely. We wanted a twin-seat variant. The Russians said nothing doing. So that was one of the reasons why we got out of the deal. We pushed in money for the technical development of this aircraft, the prototype. So Indian money is already in that project. India said, okay, we are exiting that particular project. You know how many sorties India has, or Indian pilots have flown on a Sukhoi 57, a project that we paid for? Zero.
zero.
So now, of course, we're going to test and evaluate and see if all the systems and subsystems on board, which at one level are reasonably impressive, but then the larger question about interoperability with, FCAS, if that happens in the future, AMCA, the Rafale, the Su-30 and the Tejas, how that's going to happen is going to be a real engineering feat, which we'll never know anything about because that's the classified stuff. But in a deeply data-linked, data-sharing universe, that's just going to be one more problem. You know, the biggest problem for the Indian Air Force in the past was what? We used to operate the MiG-21, 23, 25, 27, 29, Jaguar, Mirage 2000. The Indian Navy had the Sea Harrier along with it. All of these aircraft, people around the world used to say, you maintain a fleet with so many different types of aircraft. We are now progressively getting into that scenario. AMCA, Tejas Mark 1A, Tejas Mark 2, Mirage 2000s, potentially this FCAS in the future, Su-57, Rafale of different variants, right? And I must have forgotten something over there.
Beauty pageant.
It just keep them coming. We'll eventually buy it.
Yeah.
Right? And look at what NATO countries are doing. F-35. Full stop. That's it.
Standardizing on
F-35 until F-35 gets replaced with something else. And that's not happening in a jiffy. They'll keep upgrading the F-35.
Let's talk about the Su-57 for a couple of minutes, Vishnu. And I know we have over a few previous episodes as well, but now it becomes more certain and topical, and we have to talk about its capabilities. Is it a good aircraft? And I want to preface that.
The Su-57?
Yeah, I want to preface that by saying that, Angad Singh on my show also said that, when I asked him a question about how the Russians have been marketing and pushing the Su-57 to the Indian Air Force, with the suggestion that it would plug in very easily to India because, you already make the Su-30, there will be commonality, and it'll slide in easily to the Indian system. To which Angad, and I didn't think of this, Angad said that's the worst possible marketing because we should hope like hell that the Su-57 has nothing in common with the Su-30 because it's a completely different
new generation aircraft.
And there should be a degree of suffering and energy that will be expended in either acquiring or building an aircraft like this. So the Russians are absolutely wrong to be harping on commonality and how this could be an easy fit.
Shiv, let's talk a little bit about the Su-57.
Yeah.
Can I geek out for,
yes,
let's limit it to about 2.5 minutes, otherwise it'll be serious geekery.
But you have to answer the question about whether it's a good aircraft and whether it's a stealth aircraft.
Number one, it is not a stealth aircraft in the manner that India wants. The stealth design has frontal aspect optimization. That means from the front, it is reasonably stealthy, possibly stealth, but in other aspects, particularly its rear aspect, it's not stealthy. It incorporates radar-absorbent materials, so does the Rafale. It's got serrated edges and an internal weapons bay, which is very useful. But they have prioritized low observability from the front while balancing super maneuverability. So this is an extremely high performance jet. It'll turn on a dime. It does turn on a dime. Its basic, flight parameters are superb, but a part of that comes at the cost of genuine stealth. This is not an F-22. It's a compromised design because the Russians said, no, this is what we will do. If you look at its, if you look at its engine nacelles, and you know as a fact that it's not. It's a deeply compromised design from the back, from a stealth standpoint. It's got a radar called the Bielka NO36. The stats of that, it's an X-band radar, very good. It ranges up to 400 kilometers in air search, more than 1,500 transmit receive modules for its ASA radar. That's probably more than what we'll get with the Rafale. It's got very significantly, and this is what modern aircraft all have, a distributed radar array architecture. So it's got 5 antennas up total not just the one in the nose, it's got 2 cheek-mounted side-looking X-band arrays, 2 L-band arrays on the leading edge flaps. This ensures that X-band and L-band sensors come together to provide the pilot a 360-degree sort of coverage. The pilot is not looking in the front, up or down. They're looking 360 degrees up and down. That provides situational awareness, which is right up there with what the Americans have presently. So wide area situational awareness via these distributed apertures that enables high volume target tracking and engagement. So this is all the good stuff. The engine, if they ultimately move to the Isdelie version that they actually want, then it'll be extremely powerful. And I suppose it's the latest version that India is looking at right now. It's got an interim engine right now, which is the AL41. The AL51 is what India ultimately wants on it, the Isdelia 30 as it is known, because that would enable genuine supercruise at upwards of Mach 1.3, which is a huge force multiplier in the context of combat. So supercruise and high performance envelope would happen only if the engine happens. That's not happened so far. And I can go on and on.
Yeah.
So on paper, it looks great. But a lot of these features, the Rafale already has. The Rafale isn't terribly unstealthy. It's not a stealth platform. They have no claim of making it.
Which we spoke about in our previous episode.
So you are acquiring one more aircraft, and if you do this, then you just need to understand, number one, the Su-57 has not been sold anywhere. Number two, the Su-57 is in limited numbers with the Russians. Number three, its performance over the Ukraine battlefront, no one really knows very much. Number four, it has to be compatible in terms of its design with the very latest generation of ultra-long-range air-to-air missiles. Will it be able to take India's, solid fuel ducted ramjet-based air-to-air missile? Can it move beyond the R-37, which is the current generation of ultra-long-range air-to-air missile that the Russians have? So is the design of it, does it enable growth? Is there enough volume inside to accommodate larger weapons? These are all questions that need to be asked. And so you're getting this aircraft with formidable capability, assuming it all works. We've not really tested it. But is this necessarily better than the Rafale, given the fact that it's a compromised stealth aircraft?
So do you think the Indian Air Force, okay, this is an unfair question, but do you think that the possibility that the Indian Air Force has chosen or put its finger on the Su-57 basically means, Vishnu, then, that they see, taking into account all the things you've said, including the fact that the Su-57 is not an all-up stealth aircraft in many ways, like you've listed, that this is the Indian Air Force basically acknowledging that they believe the Su-57 is enough of a leap ahead of something like the Rafale, that it needs it specifically.
The Indian Air Force is worried about the Chinese, the Pakistanis acquiring the J-35 platform. JF-35, I think they're distinctly worried about the J-20 and the stealth that it affords. Even the J-20 isn't 100% stealthy. They believe that stealth is the future. They desperately needed the AMCA in service when yesterday. That's not happening at least for another 10 years. So this is an interim buy. And as I said in an earlier episode, it probably counteracts a potential failure by the AMCA. You need to have a stealth platform fighting in the 2030s, 2040s if the AMCA doesn't shape up the way you want, or it's too late by the time that it eventually does, then you need to have some stealth platform in service. Now, the question, therefore, is this. We're talking about the Su-57. We're nowhere close to a deal, but the French are quite willing, I would suggest, for India to get involved in the FCAS program, which is their replacement of the Rafale. We end up getting 114 Rafales. The French and the Germans are already looking at the sixth generation, right? And that's where FCAS, I would suggest, has to be the future. It's a generation ahead of the AMCA. We've not even prototyped the AMCA. They are now thinking about prototyping the next generation. And I think if we talk about technologies, we need to compare what the FCAS brings versus what the Su-57 brings, and we can do that if you like.
We obviously will. So now that's a good moment to get into the FCAS. So the FCAS, for those who may not be completely aware, is the Future Combat Air System, which is basically a working title for this next generation aircraft that France is leading, along with Germany and a couple of other European countries. supposed to be a replacement for the Rafale going down the line. Europe, as we have to acknowledge, doesn't have its own stealth fighter right
No.
now. They haven't built
No.
one. Very much like the Rafale and the Typhoon. Europe and the UK have been split over having one common aircraft that the entire continent can get behind, and that's been the dilemma between the FCAS, which is the Future Combat Air System, which France is leading, and the Brits, who are leading something called the Tempest. And I know that people in Airbus and BAE systems have been talking about the possibility that both these programs will finally merge at some point, because it's simply uneconomical to have two different next generation fighter programs. But where does India fit into this, Vishnu? Because this is France, which is about to sign this enormous deal with India, which is looking for some kind of a booster shot to take FCAS to the next level. India joining FCAS would be like the solution to so many of their problems,
And
possibly to our problems
All
as
our
well.
problems.
I will still say that we are in a situation where we are not left with much choice right now. I will come to the AMCA piece at the end, but is this a serious conversation that's happening
No, I
between India
think-
and France?
Well, I did ask President Macron whether, this, the potential acquisition of Rafale aircraft was part of a larger process. And, he seemed to suggest that that is the case. I do know that India has certainly had talks on the FCAS at a very basic level. These talks go on for years, as
Yeah.
you know. But I think for the benefit of our viewers, we need to understand what we are talking about. We cannot talk about the FCAS and the Su-57 in the same breath. The FCAS is the generation beyond the Su-57, the French and the Germans, because they are partners and they have disagreements at the moment. They are looking to jump over 5th gen and move straight to 6th gen. This is a 6th generation platform that we are talking about. And I think it's important that we spell out some of the key differences just for the benefit of our viewers and hearers, or whatever if you
Listeners.
like. Listeners. The Su-57 is a 5th generation aircraft. It's got elements of stealth. It's got an internal weapons bay. The FCAS is focused on AI autonomy, right? Collaborative combat, optional unmanned modes. It can fly itself if required. Multi-domain integration beyond traditional 5th generation traits. The Su-57 has limited operational capability. The FCAS is going to be much more mature by the time it enters service. They thought that the first demonstration flight would be 2029, but they are a bit delayed in that. But initial operation capability is at 2040 of this platform with many more traits. Our own AMCA would only be entering squadron service in limited numbers at that stage when they've got a prototype for something which is the next level of technology, right? It's got far more powerful engines. It's got a higher speed, probably, a higher super cruise. Its frontal aspect for stealth will be lower than anything on any current stealth aircraft. The Su-57 isn't in the running on that. It's got a next generation multispectral distributed aperture with hyperspectral, passive, and quantum resistant sensors, right? That means full 360-degree coverage fused via AI. This is a fully AI-enabled platform. The Su-57 is not, right? It's meant to operate in a heavily jammed atmosphere. It's designed to fight against fellow stealth platforms. The Su-57 might be partly stealth itself, but to fight against other stealth platforms requires a lot of other things. It's got a range which will exceed that of the Su-57. It's, again, autonomous decision aids, dynamic replanning, big data processing, real-time multi-domain fusion, collaborative combat, and teaming. That's not what the Russians with the Su-57 and a platform called the Okhotnik, which is a drone essentially, are getting into manned-unmanned teaming. This from the onset comes with a great deal more, right? Sensor fusion at the level of the cloud. It's everything that we are reading about Anthropic and Claude and what have you, using the best of those technologies 10 years later, putting it onto a plane.
So, which brings me to my question. Does it serve India's interests to get into the
Yes.
FCAS program?
Yes.
And let me finish my question, Vishnu. Does it make sense, or can India be a part of the FCAS program without folding AMCA into it? How can there be all of these separate programs?
Well, Shiv, we can't get rid of AMCA right now because we've identified a couple of companies which are going to be building the prototypes. We've put aside, 15,000 crores or whatever it was towards these companies, building the prototype, assuming that they build it to the requirements that we need. Then, they'd set up an AMCA production line, these private players. They'll be working alongside ADA and they'll be selling these planes to the Indian Air Force in large numbers. But by the time this enters in the numbers that the Air Force needs, you've already got this technology up and flying. The world has moved to sixth generation. The Chinese are already there in a prototype shape. By the time India is there at fifth generation, the world is already at fifth generation. We are nowhere close. 10 years later, the world will be moving towards sixth generation. We will be nowhere close.
The AMCA is chasing a moving target.
The Tejas is outdated. The Tejas Mark II is outdated. The AMCA might be outdated by the time it enters squadron service compared to the capabilities of these platforms and what the Chinese have.
But I would contend, and this is again something that Angad brought up on my show. I would contend that that the fact that the AMCA is so many years out, at least a decade out, makes it difficult to say anything with clarity about where it stands and
technology-wise
how it's going to end up. But a point that Angad made, and we're quoting Angad so much, which is I think a tribute to him.
Super, yeah.
We'll have him on the show soon. Is that he says that the fact that it's all the way out there, can be seen in some ways as a disadvantage because, one can look at it like you said as, by the time we get there, it'll be obsolete. Or the fact that it is a moving target, the fact that there is this huge runway for the AMCA means that by the time it actually comes online, it will have incorporated the latest technologies. All of the changes, cloud fusion, AI, autonomous operations, etc. By the time it gets there, obviously, an aircraft project is a complicated thing. You have to freeze design at some point. It can't keep... it's not a ball that keeps rolling and gathering the latest tech.
We don't have this technology in India.
So
the
then,
ones that I've spoken about.
Yeah. So then?
At some stage, I would suggest we jump from fourth generation to sixth generation. You can call it AMCA, you can call it FCAS, you can call it whatever you want. But it has to be capability first. Who's going to transfer all of this aviation technology, this high-end, extremely proprietorially protected technology to you to give you a world-beating platform? If you don't get into FCAS, you won't get that. Do you have the confidence to be actually able to do all of this? No, you don't, because a lot of this technology is also prototype.
Does India bring anything to the FCAS table apart from paisa?
We can build the structure potentially of it, which is going to be very difficult. And if they set up manufacturing lines in India, which they would have to, then we have an ecosystem which can sustain that.
What do the Europeans need from India?
$100 billion.
They need the money.
At least.
Right?
Yeah.
For FCAS. They need the money.
Yeah.
The fact that if India
the Germans and the French are fighting,
will be a massive customer for us.
The Germans and the French are fighting. So at the moment, the problem is that the French said that we need the FCAS to have a nuclear, payload, which is integrated. The Germans say we have nothing to do with nuclear stuff. And so they're fighting about that. That's one of the issues. Price is another issue. Spain is a third partner as well. If India were to get in, we have a great relationship with all of these three countries and say, look, here's top dollar, but I'm an equal partner and I want this plane and I want it built in India. Who's going to say no? But at some stage, I think, Shiv, you and I as enthusiasts and proponents of air power, which we both are, have to be realistic. I mean, who's going to afford this? With $36 billion for Rafales. I've forgotten the number we are paying for AMCA and for the Tejas Mark 1A and Tejas Mark 2. You put in another 100 billion, that's my estimate, onto this project. Upgrade your Sukhoi 30s for several $1 billion and buy the Sukhoi 57. Which economy in the world can sustain this?
So then I ask again, is that an option? I'm going to be a little emotional about this because the idea of India joining the FCAS, as much sense as it makes, and you're right about it, given what we're doing with the Rafale, etc. What happens to the entire autonomy piece? What happens to the entire, we need to figure this out ourselves, which is where the AMCA comes from? Does the AMCA get folded into the FCAS program? I'm of course talking about if that is the path India chooses to take. can both these programs exist parallelly? Does it then become a kind of first the AMCA, which is your quote unquote fifth generation platform, and then comes the FCAS a little later? One kind of flows into the other. How can both exist?
I don't think they can. I think we are too close in the development cycle of the AMCA. The fact that you've identified partners who are going to start building the thing to a certain technology
Then
set
how
that
can
you've
we do
identified.
FCAS?
FCAS has to be over and above. But the worry is this: you see, the Chinese have got at least two major sixth generation platforms flying.
J-36
Those
or
are
something.
just completely AI driven, platforms. By the time you eventually get your sixth generation platform, you will be at least a decade after them. At least when you're entering service. And as you know, all these platforms need time to mature. So it's how you see yourself being able to defend territory. I mean, this entire podcast and your belief as a journalist and my belief, journalists have all sorts of belief. My belief as a journalist is that every square inch of our territory, and airspace included, is critical. It's what I base everything on. Right? It's not non-negotiable. If that is your belief as well, which I think it is, then how does India afford to fall short? How can we afford to have Chinese platforms potentially threatening us? Or we get into an agreement with China that, we are friends forever and then disarm and end it. No, that's not going to be the case.
Yeah.
We want to, we like our territory. We want to protect our territory. We need capability. We are a huge economy. We are a monster-sized economy. We have ambitions of being a developed nation. The government is now serious about this. But at some level, they realize that, no, there's only so much that they can do. But the technology availability is in front of you. So getting to that technology curve, which FCAS has, will require some serious thinking and some serious negotiations. Whether that technology can be imported, put into AMCA, is that the way forward? Can we move AMCA to a sixth generation level of technology? We'll need to look at that. Otherwise, here's a platform. Besides the aerodynamics and the engines, including the aerodynamics and the engines, it is absolutely state of the art. It comes from arguably the greatest manufacturer of fighter aircraft on earth, Dassault. Debatable, admitted.
I'm getting a sense of deja vu because it feels like India has been in this kind of situation before, Vishnu, where it is at a crossroads. It is at a inflection point where it needs to make a decision. And too many times in the past, and you mentioned the Mirage 2000, which is perhaps the most emotive example of India sort of missing the bus or letting an opportunity go by.
And then spending top dollar
Huge.
to upgrade the Mirage 2000, which by then had flown at least 20 years.
We're still paying for that mistake.
Can I just make a point? Sorry.
Yes.
Way back in the day when MMRCA became MMRCA, as I understand it, a baseline Yas 39 Charlie level aircraft would have cost all up less than the upgrade of a single
2000.
Mirage 2000, which in Indian Air Force service had already done 20 years.
Yeah.
That's insane.
The upgrade of each airframe was basically the price of an aircraft. It's ridiculous. But again, I just want to come back to that point where FCAS, Su-57, AMCA feels like India is in a position to make a long-term decision. We're not good at this. I have to say this, and I will get into trouble for saying this, but when it comes to air power, we have never been good at long-term planning, and that's
When
the
it
reason
comes to
why we're
any
saddled
power,
with so many aircraft.
Shiv, any power.
Yeah.
I mean, we've covered brilliant
Defense in
frigates
general.
in the recent past
Yeah.
when the Project 17A frigates we went and previewed. But just look at the evolution of naval drones. We asked the Navy, what about naval drones? These are sitting ducks out there. What are you doing about it? No, we've installed some some machine guns which are centrally controlled and will take out everything. Right. We need to think about the future. It's already at us at a speed at which AI is changing warfare. If you don't get with it, then you're done for. The Chinese know this. They are already implementing. We are still talking in podcasts.
Yeah. No, and this is one of the few public spaces where sensible conversation is happening, where we call out these things.
And on social media, everybody is going to hit out at me and you Because I said that the Tejas Mark 1 is already outdated, Tejas Mark 2 is already outdated.
Yeah.
And how can you say this? We have done A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Just look at what's happening around us.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, and might I add that, even amidst the noise on social media, there are lots of very sensible voices, some of whom we're going to plan to bring onto our podcast. There are people like Indranil Roy and others, who in a very sober way,
Non-confrontational.
make
This doesn't need to be a fight. Yeah.
fantastic points.
Yeah.
And there is so much to learn. And I hope the system sort of listens to many of those points that are being raised. There are some websites that do a lot of credible stuff. It's easy to get into the kind of jousting that happens on social media. That's the nature of the beast. And I think you've been at the center of so many attacks, Vishnu, over capability versus Atmanirbhar Bharat. But there's no getting away from that.
Buy some t-shirts, import Bahadur.
Yeah, well, but the thing is, I am torn. I am conflicted about these things as well. And when you amplify those on social media, they become even louder. But these are important questions to ask because this is national security. This is billions of dollars. A brave decision taken at this point of time by this government, by
In
this
a
Air Force, by
finite
this Air
period
Chief,
of time.
can mean enormous savings.
Buy into the FCAS program.
Okay, so you are being absolutely
Because I don't see an
firm
option.
about it. Okay,
I don't
That's
see
good.
an option.
That's
and
good.
people will say this guy has been backing Dassault from day one. True.
He's anti-AMCA.
Anti-AMCA. That's not the case.
Yeah, it's not
It's
the case.
just about capability. Who wants to buy anything from anybody if you can build it in India?
Yeah. No, I'm still conflicted about it. You are pro FCAS. I see your argument. I'm still conflicted because I still believe that what you've put into the AMCA, and I know you're not against it at all, Vishnu.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah, that's
all.
to be sure. Yeah.
And you see the benefits of it. I just don't see a path where both these things can happen at the same time. Are we a country that's going to be willing to merge our intent towards FCAS, if that happens, with the AMCA? Are we willing to abandon?
No.
And I use that word advisedly in terms of basically saying, okay, we cannot do this ourselves within the time frame that we're looking at, and therefore it makes sense to do this. Will pragmatism trump the more emotive aspects of where we are? Are we going to look at short-term gains like the Su-57 rather than long-term benefits of larger programs? Above our pay grade at this point of time, because we don't pull those
Shiv, we
strings.
can't plan flyovers in this country
Yeah.
looking into traffic projections in our metros 5 years later.
Yeah,
We can't do that. We don't have that ability.
yeah.
We built the BRT without realizing that there needs to be an underpass underneath the Chirag Delhi flyover. Sorry, this is very specific to my concerns.
But no. It's a point.
I mean,
that's,
the point is you can't take decisions.
yeah, it's a point well made. I hope the Ministry of Defense is using. I know for a fact that they're using AI for many of their functions, and perhaps they actually should get into some kind of an Indian defense model that can throw up some good ways of decision making.
I think our MOD babus need to be technologically savvy. They need to understand the technology that we are talking about.
Yeah.
What is a distributed array on a fighter jet? You go and ask how many of them actually know it inside, the defense ministry among the babus over there. I would suggest that not many would. But if we are talking about the future, then you jolly well better find out about distributed arrays, X-band and L-band attachments to the wingtips and other aircraft. And its integration with EW systems and the radar, and why that's important.
Yeah, I think 100%. And I just want to end on this note, Vishnu, which is that of all the challenges that we've listed, all the very, very daunting decisions that need to be taken urgently, the system we are in currently is perhaps the best possibly configured system to actually take those brave decisions.
No, hats off to the Prime Minister.
Whether it is this government, whether it is this Air Chief, whether it is this Defense Secretary, whether it is this Raksha Mantri, they're all people who have been known to be non-safe players when it comes to decision making. So if anyone can do it, these guys can do it, is my final word on this.
Op Sindoor was George Fernandez style snow scooter moment.
Yeah.
Do you remember George Fernandez and snow scooters?
Yeah,
When he
yeah.
sent some babus of the defense ministry to Siachen, put them on snowmobiles
Go
and
experience
said that,
it.
you are denying our soldiers over their snowmobiles because you're stating some cost, this, that and the other.
Yeah.
Right? Go over there and see what it is that they're trying to do.
Yeah.
I think Op Sindoor may have been 2025, 2026's snow scooter moment where you realize that there is serious technology out there. You have to fight that. Pakistan is not even your primary adversity. Where do you stand?
Yeah. It's time to end this episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you have been, and we will see you the next time.
Goodbye.